Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Happy Saturday evening. It is time for the final BS in a beer for this week. Yesterday, got lucky. 10-year-old fruit beer that I was pretty sure was going to be okay. Turned out to be okay. Tonight, however, we will see. Sliding in, we have another big one. There it is, Dogfish Head. I have a lot of these because they do a lot of bigger stuff that can be aged or hopefully can be aged. This is Noble Rot, ale brewed with grape must and with grape must added. 9% alcohol by volume. And this is 12 years old at this point. This is 2013. So, I don't know. We're going to get in and we're going to see if this is even drinkable, and then we'll go from there and see what's going on. But hold on. Okay. We have open. Nope. Whoa. No. 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 No, 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 no. Yep, no. That's unfortunately that's a massive nope right there. Hang on, I'm taking this one out to the garage. I'll be right back. Okay, take two. Yeah, unfortunately, that as soon as I opened that up, I was punched in the face by just not good. Just a whole lot of not good. A whole lot of really bordering on rancid, like that sickly sweet aroma that you know, like, okay, this is too sweet. Something has gone wrong. And 100% something went amiss in that one over the 12 years it was sitting there. So now we have the backup beer. And I pose this question to you. Have you ever been walking through a store and you purchase something, and mind you, I know this one's going to be good. Have you ever purchased something purely based on the name or on the label? Well, that's exactly what happened here. So, I present to you the backup beer for this evening. Oop, there it is. Mast Landing Pantless Thunder Goose. If there wasn't a better name for a creature, I could not tell you what it is. But this is it says double IPA, but technically it is a New England style IPA, and I will get into that in a minute. These are the different hops it has: Eldorado, Mosaic, HBC 630, and Kohatu. I've only heard of 3 of those. This must be a new one, the HBC 630. 8.3%, and where's Mast Landing from? It's from up in Maine somewhere. Westbrook, Maine, there you go. So, don't know what the reason is that people do that. Everybody has a little tail on that. But we have almost 8.5% into the pint. Odd side ales. I went to that place. That was really cool. Now, we pour, and that actually is exactly what I was kind of expecting it to be, considering what the style is. So we're going to sit that there. The Pantless Thunder Goose will sit there and watch the proceedings, and we're going to flip it around, and we're going to talk some really, really, really weird stuff. And here we are over here. You'll forgive me. I'm keeping an eye out. Houston is currently thrashing Colorado. Sorry there, Dion. But here we go. First off, Pantless Thunder Goose. Is there any better name for an ostrich than that? I mean, it's just absolutely genius. Simple labeling. Fantastic. Now, the beer in question, the Pantless Thunder Goose. What is a New England style IPA? Well, basically, it's an IPA made up in the New England region. I think it really started in Vermont, but it's like this. It's hazy. They don't filter it, so all the yeast is still in there. That's pretty much the only difference between a regular IPA and your New England IPA. So let's go in. Smells, citrusy. Yep, citrusy. A little dank and green, if you know what I'm talking about. A lot of hops do have that aroma. Fairly certain they might be in a similar family. But that's another thing. The New England ones are very citrusy and often grapefruity. But again, that just comes from the hops. It's very interesting plant. Woo! Nowhere near as bitter as I expected it to be. Because with a lot of these IPAs, it's like just bitter just attacks you and just right in your face. And this one did not have it. This one really balanced. slightly. There's a little bit of, it almost tastes like the rind. You know, like if you don't peel a grapefruit or a citrus fruit, but in this particular case, grapefruit properly, and you leave some of the pith on there, it has that little bit of that dry, acidic taste, and that's just very nice. Very, very nice indeed. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, nicely done, Mast Landing. This is a beautiful thing. And I think it won the World Beer Cup for that category in, was it 2022, 2023? One of those two, I can't remember. But I can see why. This is quite good. Yeah. Yeah. This is a good one to get warmed up to talk some all kinds of random nonsense and some weird history hoopla. Now, as you can probably tell from the thumbnail, this is going to be a weird one. In the realm of weird court cases, I would say this one has to rank up near the top. This is called the Cadaver Synod. And let's take it back in a little bit of history time. We take you back to early ancient Rome, 872 to like the 800s, 900s. Here's the political upheaval part. Shockingly, with this part of the world in this time, I know. Between 872 and 965, so not even 100 years, 24 popes, two dozen different popes were appointed, and there was a span, an 8-year span between 896 and 904 AD, and there was, on average, a new pope every year. All kinds of things going on. The big political families of various kingdoms throughout the Roman Empire were constantly at war, constantly challenging the papacy. He's not the pope, he's not the pope, yada, 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 and that is really where it went. So now we have to bring in Pope Stephen VI, a very short papacy. Let's see, May 22nd, 896 to sometime in August of 897, so a little over a year. He was one of those very controversially elected popes because the family that he was dealing with, it was the Duke of Spoleto. Very powerful family, a lot to say. They were constantly challenging the papacy, and they were able to install basically their little minion, and there's a couple pictures will be going up there, Pope Stephen VI. And here's the problem. At this point, finances were in the toilet. The papacy was corrupt as anything. Funds were bleeding dry. And even more, it was so poor that the Archbasilica of St. John's Lateran was damaged by a very severe earthquake in, I think, June or July of 897 AD. And because there was no money, they weren't able to fix it until the reign of Sergius III, who was pope from 904 to 911 AD. That gives you a basic idea of where they were financially up to this point. Now, we go to near the middle of his papacy. It is January of the year 897 AD. We are in the aforementioned Archbasilica of St. John Lateran. Pope Stephen VI has now decided that he is going to place on trial his predecessor, a man by the name of Pope Formosus. Here's the problem. Remember when I said January of 897? Other than one of the more recent popes, how do you stop being pope? That's right. Pope Formosus died April the 4th, 896. What I'm telling you to process this is the seated pope ordered the exhumation of his 9-month dead predecessor to be brought into the basilica, dressed in papal vestments, propped up, and put on trial. The picture that's the thumbnail and the trial, it's one of the most enduring pictures because literally that is exactly what happened. Pope Stephen VI, they stood there and they basically shouted accusations at a corpse. So here we go. Now here's the charges. Pope Formosa was accused formally of transmigrating seas in violation of canon law, perjury, and serving as a bishop while actually a layman. So these are the charges that are now brought against the corpse of Pope Formosa. Or Formosus, I'm sorry. And a bishop was appointed to speak for the deceased pontiff at the time. Now, as we let that marinate for a minute, I'm going to take another sip of this and just lean back, because it's at this point of these stories that you just think, really? And yeah, the answer is really. This is really what happened. And there you go. I've said it before. Truth is stranger than fiction. Here we have a pope seated, putting on trial a corpse. And this is one of these things, you actually cannot make this up. Pause for the cause. Let's give a cheers. So, where were we? Oh, yes. The accused corpse is still seated on the throne throughout this trial. There is no specific record of how long the trial took. More than likely it didn't last but a few hours, which, in all honesty, is still far too long for something of this nature. Ultimately, shocking, the corpse of Pope Formosus was found guilty. After having, and now, all right, let's just wait. It's going to get good. First off, Pope Stephen orders the corpse be stripped of all papal vestments. Okay, that's what you would do, if you're ousting a pope. Fine. But it's a guy that's been dead for 9 months. Next, Pope Stephen ordered the 3 fingers of his right hand that he would use to have done blessings with removed. So like these 3 when he would, make the signs of the cross and whatnot. So most likely these 3 fingers would have been removed from the corpse, or the right hand of the corpse. Now, and then the next step was formally invalidating the entirety of his papacy, all ordinations, all orders, anything that he had put throughout his tenure. Finally, the body was put in as they put it back then, it was a graveyard for foreigners. Not for long, because I'm not sure exactly how long after, but they dug up the corpse, tied lead weights to it, and hucked it in the Tiber River. I mean, you seriously, what, you have to think, what is going on that you go that extreme on a dead guy who, preceded you in an office that, mind you, he doesn't know, but he is about, it's January and he left office, as they say, in August, so we're only talking 7 months away from the end of his tenure, among other things. And then what happened is the body washed up. And from what I've read, people claimed that the corpse, waterlogged, was still performing miracles. At this point, people found out what happened, and the uprising began. Pope Stephen VI was deposed and imprisoned, and ultimately was strangled in prison sometime in August of 897, thus ending the reign, very short and very, I do have to say, highly dubious reign of Pope Stephen VI. So now we move ahead to the next pope. This is Pope Theodore II, who was elected in December of 897 following the removal of Stephen VI. First thing he did was he convened his own synod, which is essentially a formal court setting, and annulled the cadaver synod. They rehabilitated Pope Formosus, ordered the body, which was at this point recovered from the banks of the Tiber River, to be reburied in St. Peter's Basilica in pontifical vestments. One funny thing I forgot to mention. Don't you think it's weirdly coincidental that, take from this what you will, but you have to think of it. This trial took place in the Archbasilica of St. John's Lateran in January of 897. They say sometime in June or July of 897, the earthquake took it. It's very weird, but at least Pope Stephen was in jail and probably felt that one. So you got to think. So let's close that off. That's just weird. I mean, legitimately, you talk about just weird, and that's why I love history. I know when my mom started taking a history class, she was asking me questions like, "Did you know this happened?" Like, yeah, this is a lot of these things. It's like, where do you think Hollywood got its ideas? It's very, I don't know. That's why history is fascinating, because you literally never know. Here it is. It's, 10 o'clock or so on a Saturday, and some of you are sitting here watching me talk about a court case where a pope was screaming, accusations at a dead guy for some hours. But that's exactly what this show is all about, because this is the kind of nonsense and random historical hoopla that you talk about in bars. So we're going to have another sip of this, and we're going to close off the week. It's been an interesting week. Football's tomorrow. Ooh, my fantasy team is not doing well. A.J. Brown. Anybody in my fantasy league, if my team name changes to A.J. Brown for trade, you'll know why. One of the greatest generational talent receivers in the NFL today. Only problem is Jalen Hurts forgets he's on the Eagles. But what can you do? But I will close it out by saying this. Thank you guys for taking another 15 or so minutes to spend with me. Lord knows why you do it, but I'm glad you do. So we're going to raise this up. Another cheers to you guys if you're having one along with me. Cheers. And honestly, if any of you are having one along with me, let me know in the comments down below. What are you having? Doesn't even have to be beer. Like I say, even if it's a bottle of, well, as I would call it in Pittsburgh, pop, or the rest of the world would call it soda. Unless if you're in Atlanta, then it's just Coke. In Italy, which was always just Pepsi. But in any event, really appreciate you spending the time with me. So, to tease for next Friday. It's going to be a long week, but here you go. You know what next Friday, September the 19th is? It is International Talk Like a Pirate Day. And that's going to be a little shout out to National Parks Princess because she mentioned something. So, you know what we're going to talk about next Friday? That's right, leprechauns. Now, we're going to dig into a little bit of pirate mythology. Speaking of Hollywood, there's a lot of things that a lot of people believe about pirates that we got from the movies. But until then, I bid you a happy and safe week. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to have one more, and then I'm going to leave you with my random thought because, like I say, this is what I do, for better or worse. One more sip, and there's not much left of that, so that's going to be good. But I leave you with this parting thought, ladies and folks. Did you ever stop to think what our pets named us? Have a good night, everybody.